Hey, I don't know who you are, and quite honestly, I don't care. But have you ever seen the movie Flushed Away? It's a DreamWorks film that did really awfully at the box office. It's gotten ironically positive reception on Rotten Tomatoes and the internet because people like to pretend to adore things that blow, kind of like a train horn or a French horn or horny little people affectionately referred to as midgets. Well, Flushed Away is actually an okay little movie that affectionately made fun of Britain. There was also a dark ulterior plot motive that was quickly abandoned because DreamWorks was afraid it would make the movie flop. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? Well, I guess you don't if you think Flushed Away is actually a good kind of movie. It's kind of empirical that it sucks. The premise, in a hard-boiled shit-stained nutshell, is that a family rat pet gets flushed down the toilet by an invader rat, who he ends up being okay with, Sydney. He ends up in a sewer replica of London, falls in love, saves the place, and ultimately decides to stay. The creators of Flushed Away were purposely implying that London is a shitty place to be. But personally, I think that's kind of rude and xenophobic. I took a bite out of my bangers and mash and washed it down with kidney pie juice and continued to have a look-see at the unreleased tape. The plot where the leading spy rat hero man figures out the villain's plot motive about humans taking big shits at halftime of some soccer game. I don't care about that crap. I live in Canada. And therefore, flushing away sewer London is replaced with an ulterior motive. You see, it turns out that DreamWorks had lobbyist ties with the state of Florida Republican Party. And Governor DeSantis, who wasn't governor at the time, had it ordered for Flushed Away to be about the dangers of contraceptives. During halftime of the Oscars or some other douchey liberal program, the humans were going to flood actual douches and condoms down the drain and destroy sewer London. And actual Americans in real life were to respond to the film in disdain for how free sanitary napkins and bathrooms would lead to the destruction of their beloved cousins across the pond. On the other hand, no more Coldplay. As for what I think of the film, well, as you may have guessed, there's a reason why I'm telling you this, and it's not because I'm alone. I was hired by recently failed Democratic presidential candidate John Fitzgerald Forbes Carey to break into the DreamWorks corridor of the RNC and snatch away the movie reel. It took a lot of brandy milk punches and mint juleps, let me tell you, to work up the courage. But I sidestepped the security system with stealth and wisdom, dressed up in all black like it was a weekly Kennedy family funeral. I knew the number. It was RAT in ASCII code, and I gave the tape reel its proper burial, if one might consider it that, given it went down the watery drain and not into the dirt. Huh. Yes, that's right. I flushed away. I celebrated with a nibble of cheese and scurried back to my mouse hole, my nickname for my studio apartment. The people were free of propaganda wrapped up in rodentious children's CGI animation. Ratatouille. The next day there was a knock at the door. At first I assumed it was the Daily Pizza guy, a well-mannered burglar, or a Coldplay fan who wanted to punch my lights out. But no, it was a man in a rat costume. He was waving around a Confederate flag and belching out the melody to Dixie. Sid has arrived to take you back to the sewers, you frizzled and unkempt little mildew fucker. It was at that point that I realized that it made no sense for the Republican Party to order the halting of the film, given that the hatred of contraception would only fuel public affinity for a ban of the stuff in their favor. I slammed the apartment door on his fuzzy fursuit rat tail and hid under the bed for several weeks, subsisting on Red Baron pepperoni microwavable pizza crumbs and Juicy Juice packets. When all was said and done, I no longer smelled a rat and assumed the coast was clear. A biting pain shot through my foot when I realized I had stuck it into a man-sized rat trap. Not something my ex-wife left me. My fat had turned purple in my leg from the lack of circulation, and as I could not keep my coordination on one gimp fat leg, I fell to the floor, screeching in agony. My vision began to blur as I fell faint to the ground. When I woke up, I was tied in a familiar position. I was roped to my toilet. Not at all kinky toilet seat up. I was sitting in the water itself, and upon dipping a finger in and staring down at my newly regained 20/20 eyesight, I could tell it was fecal. Before I could say a word, I could feel myself swirl in a spiral, milliseconds after a fuzzy, furry rat suit hand pressed down on the toilet lever on the side of me. I was being flushed down the drain. No, it's not really different than what I'm accustomed to in life, let me tell you. Pretty similar to what I would go through every day. When I woke up, there was no longer water, pipes, drains, or whatever. It was black and red like a checkerboard. Flames soaring a mile high like a Kiss concert. Men and women and others of all ages screaming in agony like an amusement park gone horribly wrong. And there was a short, baldish man twirling a pitchfork in his hands. He looked a lot like Danny DeVito. It's true that you did our cause a service, but you were actually under the guise that you worked for the other side. Danny DeVito muttered between bites of Jersey Mike's tomato and Limp Bizkit's pasta sauce sub sandwiches. His teeth looked kind of like that of a rat. I'm afraid we're going to have to kill you again, because you have to die a first time before you make your way to hell. Where do you think that rat came from? The DNC? Well, if you thought that, you were right. Well, what you may have thought about politics may have been true all along, but the important thing is that's now how I spend the rest of my days, and perhaps it's a step up from the life I lived before. For the rest of eternity, Satan pokes me in the ass with a pitchfork, I let out a holler, and I'm forced to recognize that even the rats had it better than I do. In fact, as the days go by, I find myself becoming more and more like a rodent. Sorry, instinct. You know, it may sound cheesy, it may sound hokey, frizzled and unkempt, disheveled, but if a younger cousin forces you to lay your two human eyes upon a flushed away VHS tape, just be glad that you didn't have to watch what it was and suffer through all that I'm going through. Because if you do, because if you do, because if you do, you just might wish that you were flushed away.
Frantic tick tick tock, frantic tick tick tock, frantic tick 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 tock.